Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite cricket fan channel, Willow and Leather. This is Shravan joining you once again. We're almost at the end of the group stages of the 2024 T20 Cricket World Cup. And at the time of this recording, there are just the last couple of games yet to happen. But for all practical purposes, the Super 8s are pretty much decided. I think there's just one last spot up for grabs. But we'll get to that very quickly. So I thought I'll just do a quick video just kind of highlighting and summarizing what happened in the Super 8 stages, what some of the surprises were, and also look forward to the actual groups in Super 8s and see what lies in store for us. Firstly, let's start with Group A, and I think this was where one of the most interesting and biggest surprises of the tournament came, which was USA qualifying along with India to the Super 8s, eliminating Pakistan. So that definitely has been a massive result and a performance from USA. Absolutely, 100% credit to them where credit is due. Played fantastically well in that opening game against Canada. Chasing a score in excess of 190, which was great to see. Absolute wonderful batting performance from the team in that game, especially from Aaron Jones, who scored a 94 unbeaten innings to take his team home. I think that was studded with like 10 sixes, which I think is the second highest ever in a T20 World Cup innings. So they got off to a great start. And beating Canada would have been definitely, something that they would have been realistically wanting to do. So it was great to see that. But then in their second game against Pakistan, they again played an exceptional game. The bowlers coming to the party, Saurabh Netravalkar and the rest of the bowling pack as well, performing very well. And eventually doing just enough to not actually surpass the target, but just managing to equal Pakistan's score in the chase, which led to the super over. And my oh my, how Pakistan fumbled that particular super over. Mohammad Amir just all over the place, giving up 18 runs in that over, and then Pakistan came out to chase and just weren't able to do it. Again, courtesy Saurabh Netravalkar's exceptional bowling performance in that super over. So that obviously was going to be the crucial game in that group, but unfortunately, Pakistan just doing Pakistan things. That team has always been one that blows very hot or very cold, and unfortunately this time around it wasn't enough. And then once Pakistan lost to India, hopefully folks caught the previous video that I did, which was the review of the India-Pakistan game. But once Pakistan lost to India in that encounter, it was pretty much up to US, and the fate was in US's hands and completely out of Pakistan's hands at that point for qualification. And fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, given the way the US have been playing, I think they would have definitely been favorites to beat Ireland in that game as well. But having said that, it's a short game. Anything can happen on any given day. But unfortunately, we couldn't watch that game because of all the rains that were happening in Florida. So the US Ireland game got washed out, which effectively meant that which meant that USA would finish on a total of 5 points, which was enough to keep them ahead of Pakistan in the points race. And that means that USA qualifies alongside India. So India remains in A1, and USA will be now ranked as A2, and they make it to the Super 8s at the cost of Pakistan. Lot for Pakistan to ponder over. I think they need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what they can do as a unit, because I think they were outclassed in multiple areas. Bowling wise, they were decent, at least in a few games. That game against India, they were exceptionally good, but again, a lot of the performances seem to be coming in patches, and there doesn't really seem to be any sense of consistency there. And there are like a lot of things I think that the team needs to sort out. Someone like an Azam Khan being in the team, look, I think he's a good batter. can be good and devastating on his day. But at the end of the day, to be honest, and again, not necessarily commenting on his body size in any way, right? I'm just focusing on the fitness aspect. Just looking at the way he was batting and even keeping initially in the warm-up games, etc., it just looks like he's not up to the mark, to be doing it at that level at international standards. And I think Pakistan cricket board really needs to do some soul searching to figure out where the changes need to happen and how they can bring a turnaround in this team. But yeah, it'll likely be a long-term project, but this is what they'll have to do to make sure that they can again become one of those fiery teams that other countries in the past used to fear. I think that fear factor has gone away now, unfortunately. So Pakistan will have to do a lot of introspection and soul searching to be able to find their mojo again. So yeah, commiserations to them. But India and USA qualify. Another key aspect. The top 8 teams who qualify for the Super 8s this time are guaranteed automatic entry into the 2026 T20 World Cup. I believe that's happening in Sri Lanka and in India. So it's absolutely fantastic that USA has been able to put together these couple of games and put up the kind of performances. For a team that managed to qualify for this World Cup only on the basis that they were the host nation, from that to actually coming and beating Bangladesh in a 3-match series ahead of the World Cup, then coming in and beating Canada and then beating Pakistan, and actually put up a very impressive performance against India as well. They were definitely in the hunt till about the 15th-16th over in the second innings. So with that in mind, I think it's an incredibly fantastic performance from Team USA. Absolutely well deserved to make it to the Super 8s, but this also means that they will directly qualify to the 2026 World Cup. So absolutely fantastic result for them overall, and I think in the next couple of years, with all the MLC happening, with all the domestic players getting a chance to play against, and with some of the best T20 cricketers from around the globe, I think the quality of cricket in the US is just going to keep improving, and I think this will be a fantastic place where a lot of cricketing talent gets uncovered and unearthed, and hopefully with the right kind of support and guidance and infrastructure in place, I think we can produce a lot of exciting talent from this country to represent USA in future competitions. Right, so that was Group A. Group B, it was interesting for a bit. Australia, pretty much whitewashing and winning all their games against every opponent. Some of the teams did make it a little tough for them and tricky for them, but in the end, while chasing, I think the middle order really came to the party, especially Marcus Stoinis stepping up in a couple of crunch games for them, albeit against slightly, less star-studded teams, but I think they did incredibly well to make sure that they didn't have any hiccups along the way and were able to qualify smoothly to the playoffs. On the other hand, England weren't in as comfortable a position. Obviously, losing to Australia in that high-scoring game, losing that game by almost 35 runs, I think it was. So the run rate had taken a beating in that particular game. And the game against Scotland before that was a washout as well. Scotland, though, at that point were in a very good position. I think at the end of 10 overs while batting, they were 90 for no loss. I think it was somewhere around that. So Scotland could have definitely made a good matchup out of it. So I think both teams will probably feel like they lost out on a point there. England, just because on paper they're a much stronger team and you would expect them to still fight back in that game and win those 2 points. But Scotland, on the other hand, the way they started that game, I think they were definitely in a good enough position to actually cause an upset there. But unfortunately, because the result did not come, the 2 points were shared between the teams. But then Scotland put up a couple of really impressive performances against the other 2 teams in the group and managed to get up to 5 points with a very, very impressive run rate. So it was all up to England to do the hard work and make sure that they not only beat the other 2 smaller teams in that group, but also beat them very, very handsomely to make sure that their run rate would get better as well. All the while hoping that Scotland would eventually lose to Australia in their final group game, which they did, but they put up an absolutely fantastic effort. Like I said, some very, very strong will shown by the middle order in the Australian lineup, particularly led by Marcus Stoinis, made sure that Australia was still able to secure that win against Scotland. But for a long part of that chase, it wasn't looking like it was going to be easy for Australia, which it wasn't. But then England did what they had to do, beat the other two teams and beat them pretty handsomely, which made sure that their run rate went up. And once Scotland lost to Australia, both England and Scotland finished with 5 points, but England had the superior run rate. So after a topsy-turvy kind of a group stage, England somehow managed to get through to the Super 8s along with Australia. So, that'll be something that all the other teams would have taken notice of. I think England right now are like the wild cards in the Super 8. So it'd be very exciting to see how they perform in the Super 8s. But yeah, just, managing to barely escape from the jaws of elimination and sneaking their way in. Now, that would have been an absolutely incredible story if at all the defending champions England would have been knocked out in the group stage, but they've held their nerve, and maybe this is the start of something where they really get their act together now and they can start putting together a series of good performances heading into the Super 8s. So that's Group B anyway. Shout out to Scotland for definitely making putting in a good enough performance to annoy a few English folks, I'm sure. But England gets the job done and they make it to the Super 8s. Right, moving on to Group C. This is where another, cricketing powerhouse unfortunately got eliminated. New Zealand, very, very under par performances. Look, I mean, the way the groups are set up, out of the 5 teams, I think in most groups there are probably 3 teams that are likely competing for those 2 spots in the Super 8s from their group. So it's very, very important to make sure that you somehow find a way to win at least one of those 2 games against those 2 potential competitors who are also fighting for that spot in the Super 8s. So when you think about Group C, it was always going to be between New Zealand, West Indies and Afghanistan. So given how West Indies is lined up, you would think that New Zealand West Indies was always going to be a tough game. But as a New Zealand fan, I'm sure you would have expected a lot more from New Zealand, especially in that game against Afghanistan. So that opening game for New Zealand was an absolute horror show. If folks caught that game for the first 10 or 12 overs while Afghanistan were batting, they gave, I think, 8 or 9 different chances. It was a mix of catches, run-out opportunities, stumping opportunities, and New Zealand, unfortunately, just made a complete hash of it. And as a result, Afghanistan put up a fairly decent score on board. But then what followed in the second innings was an absolute nightmare of a performance from New Zealand with the bat as well. New Zealand found wanting big time. Absolutely clueless against the Afghani bowlers, both the medium pacers, but then later especially against the world-class spinners that are always present in that Afghani lineup. New Zealand losing that badly made it a very, very tough task for them. But then later on when they played West Indies and lost that game to West Indies, it was pretty much curtains for New Zealand. Again, in that game as well, I think while bowling first, New Zealand were in control for almost like the first 18, 17 overs of that game. But in the last 2 or 3 overs is when Sherfane Rutherford from West Indies just took the bowling apart completely and managed to put up what was still a fairly decent score. But then New Zealand, again, with the bat not being able to craft that chase well enough to be able to get over the line. And that meant they had lost to the 2 other competitors. And despite how well they did against the other 2 slightly weaker teams in the group, qualification was kind of out of their hands at that point. And rightfully so, West Indies and Afghanistan qualify as the 2 teams from Group C. Afghanistan, as I mentioned, coming off of some good performances in the group stage. Most notable one obviously being the victory against New Zealand. And I think Afghanistan cricket is at that stage now where them beating a team, one of the top teams, doesn't necessarily qualify as an upset anymore, just because the kind of world-class bowlers that they have and some of the batters in that team as well. They can pretty much challenge and beat most of the teams on any given day. So they are no longer one of those minnows who you can take for granted. I think you'll be doing that at your own peril. So yeah, Afghanistan, credit to them qualifying for the Super 8s. And West Indies, obviously the home team, one of the two home teams, putting up some really good performances in the crunch moments that mattered, and they sail through to the Super 8s as well. And coming to Group D, South Africa and Bangladesh likely. I mean, Bangladesh are yet to play their last game later this evening at the time of this recording, but just given where Bangladesh are on the table, and with the positive run rate as well, I really doubt if Netherlands can actually overtake Bangladesh and qualify. It will need Netherlands to win their last game tonight and Bangladesh to lose their last game, and for Netherlands to do it with a big run rate while Bangladesh loses by a big margin as well. So I really doubt that happening, but stranger things have happened. So just in case Netherlands qualify, please don't come and say, hey, you jumped the gun too early. I'm just trying to do the best at the time of recording, just based on the information that I see. My feeling is that Bangladesh is probably going to be the second team that qualifies from that group, but stranger things have happened, so I'll leave it at that. But having said that, Bangladesh have played some really good cricket in this tournament, especially. I think heading into this World Cup, they weren't in the best of positions, losing the 3-match series to USA. Which a lot of people would consider a genuine upset, but Bangladesh were kind of all over the place, and even that third game that they won in that 3-match series, USA had rested a lot of their key players, and Bangladesh was pretty much playing a full strength squad, because of which they were able to at least win that last game. But nonetheless, it was a series loss against USA, which is kind of quite disappointing for them. And then coming into the World Cup, in the warm-up game, they lost pretty badly to India. But in the games that mattered in the group stages, they did exceptionally well. That first game against Sri Lanka was going to be one of the most important games for them, because when you look at that group, South Africa on paper is the strongest team there. So it was very likely going to be either Bangladesh or Sri Lanka which would make it out of that group as a second team to qualify. But that game against Sri Lanka, they bowled exceptionally well, keeping Sri Lanka down to a fairly modest score. And this is where I need to talk about Sri Lanka. They have just been absolutely poor in this World Cup. You got a sense in that very first game that they were just not clicking as a group, as a batting unit especially. I think the bowling still looks very solid and strong. You have absolute game changers and match winners like Wanindu Hasaranga, Matisha Patirana, and Tushara is in there now. Mahesh Theekshana is there, the experienced off spinner there. So bowling wise, I think they have enough talent and genuine match winners there all of them can single-handedly win you games. So it's a great bowling lineup, but I think in the batting department they have fumbled it big time. Losing to Bangladesh, not putting up a good score. And then Sri Lankan bowlers absolutely made a fight out of it, but unfortunately in the end Bangladesh held their nerve and took the team over the line, and securing those two very, very vital points. But then Bangladesh fumbled against South Africa in a low scoring chase as well. But after that, they came back and beat Netherlands in a good game as well. So I think those two results, beating Lanka and beating Netherlands, were the two key results. I think that will be enough to see Bangladesh through. Sri Lanka are out, obviously, but Netherlands still have the last glimmer of hope, and they'll be really hoping and praying that Bangladesh loses their last game today. For all practical purposes, it does look like Bangladesh will be the second team to make it through. Kudos to them, because at the beginning of the tournament, like I said, coming in that kind of form, then losing against India in that warm-up, they look to be all over the place, but they have just managed to click at the right time, at least against some of the other, mid-level teams in that group, to make sure that they do enough to secure their qualification. And South Africa, on the other hand, doing again enough to qualify. There were a couple of close games where they were They didn't start off too well, especially the top order hasn't been doing well at all. Netherlands managed to get them to 12 runs for 4 wickets, I think, in their particular game, while South Africa were chasing a fairly small score. But it's the middle order, the likes of David Miller and Heinrich Klaassen, who've bailed them out a couple of times in this tournament now. I think even against Bangladesh, it was a fairly average start from the top order, again being 20 plus something for 4 wickets. So yeah, the top order is absolutely not firing at the moment for South Africa, but the middle order is just doing enough to get the job done. So at least those are the positives that they'll take through, and the bowling has been looking pretty well, pretty good actually. Henrik Nokia, given the kind of form he was in the IPL, the team Delhi Capitals rested him for the later part of the tournament, but then he's made a fantastic comeback for the Proteas and has done very, very well to pick up some crucial breakthroughs all through the innings. So I think that'll definitely be a great positive sign for them. And the middle order clicking is also great, but that top order will have to fire in the Super 8s, otherwise they'll pretty much be heading out of the tournament very quickly. Right, so those are the top 8 teams to qualify. Obviously, what that means, as I mentioned, is that the likes of Pakistan, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, all these big teams will have to play the qualifiers now for the 2026 T20 World Cup. Look, they're all genuine quality sides, so I'm pretty confident that they'll find their way into the main tournament. But just the fact that they have to go through these additional games now to be able to qualify, I think that in itself is like a little bit embarrassing. It should be a little embarrassing for all these teams, and hopefully they can, turn things around and try and get better as a unit in the coming year or so. But for the 8 teams that do qualify, as I had mentioned in my season or the tournament preview video, the groups were already decided based on the seedings. So as it stands now, Group 1 is going to be India, Australia, Afghanistan now, which qualifies in place of New Zealand, and the 4th team would be very likely Bangladesh now, if not Netherlands. But it's looking like Bangladesh at this point of time. So India, Australia, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. Look, I think both India and Australia will be fairly happy with the outcomes there. I think from Group D, the other option would have been Sri Lanka instead of Bangladesh, but I think India or Australia would fancy their chances against either Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, so the results from Group D might not have mattered to them as much. But the fact that a big team like New Zealand is out, and the team that knows how to win some crucial games and hold their nerve, the fact that they haven't made it to the Super 8s, I think India and Australia will be very, very happy with it. Because otherwise India and Australia's games against New Zealand would have been the most important ones to watch, because New Zealand in their own rights can easily beat India and Australia any given day of the week as well. So having a potential competitor like that out of the group stage itself, I think that will make India and Australia very, very happy. Look, as I said, I think anyone who takes Afghanistan lightly will be doing it at their own peril, but I still feel like India and Australia would both take Afghanistan over New Zealand at this point of time. So yeah, India and Australia looking like the 2 favorites now from Group 1 to make it to the semi-finals. So the game between India and Australia, I think that's happening on the 24th of June, so that will be an exciting one to look forward to. Could very well be a prelude to a potential finals matchup again between the 2 teams. So we'll see how that goes. It'll be an exciting game to watch. But one way or the other, I feel like India and Australia might be the 2 teams that make it to the semis from Group 1. Right, from Group 2, we have USA now finishing as the A2 qualifiers. Alongside England, who now make it to the playoffs. Or the Super 8s. And then we have West Indies and South Africa. So that group is looking a little bit more interesting. USA obviously is the surprise package in that group. A lot of people wouldn't have expected USA to be there. And to be honest, despite how well USA have done, I think it might be a little bit too much to ask from them to try and make it to the semis, given the likes of the teams like England, West Indies, and South Africa, 3 big teams there. So USA, I think, might just be overpowered there. But look, I think the USA bowling looks fairly solid, and on tricky pitches where the ball is doing just a little bit, I think they can be more than a handful. I think it'll just depend on how the batsmen step up, especially the top order. If the openers and the top 3-4 guys can get going for Team USA, they can still cause some upsets. But I think at this point, it likely looks like a three-way race between England, West Indies, and South Africa. So those matchups will be very, very interesting to watch. And I think USA will potentially look to be potentially look to cause some upsets as well. So, because any team in that group that loses against USA, I think their chances of qualifying are going to be super hard. So it might just come down to the results between the games that happen between the West Indies, England, and South Africa. I think those will be the results that will be interesting to watch. But my picks from that group would be England and West Indies to qualify for the semi-finals, which kind of lines up with my predictions at the beginning of the tournament as well. Initially, before the tournament kicked off, my forecast was that India, Australia, England, and West Indies would be the 4 teams to make it to the semi-finals. All those 4 contestants are still in the tournament. They've all made it to the Super 8. So at least, my predictions have survived the first round of the group stages. We'll see how the predictions hold up in the Super 8 stage as well. But yeah, it definitely looks like a very, very exciting few games coming up now in the Super 8 stages. Yeah, missing out on the likes of Pakistan and New Zealand in the Super 8s kind of takes away from the joy or the excitement of some very interesting matchups that could have potentially happened. But nonetheless, there's still some very, very good quality sides there, and teams like Afghanistan, Bangladesh possibly, and even USA will be looking to try and make a mark in the Super 8 stages as well. They've done really well to make their way out of the group stages, and I think they'll want to continue continue creating more pressure on the teams to try and cause a few more upsets there too. But that's where we are, looking very likely to be, and I'll just put my forecast here right away. For the semis, I think it'll be an India-West Indies semi-final and an England-Australia semi-final. We'll see if that holds true or not. But one way or the other, I think India and Australia will be the 2 teams that meet in the finals. But yeah, exciting times. We'll see how the rest of the tournament goes. I'll catch you in the next one. Very likely, as the Super 8 games progress, I might just do a preview video for one of India's games or some other exciting games that pop up as well. But yeah, this was my quick wrap up of the group stage of the T20 World Cup. It's been a very, very exciting phase. Obviously, all the action now moves out of the USA. The pitches and the grounds in the USA have been a mixed bag, to be honest. They have been low scoring pitches, but I think what it has done, it has brought out some skills, batting skills have come to the front, and especially for Indian fans who had watched the IPL for 2 months before this, it was just mind-numbingly, I wouldn't call it boring, but it was just too many flat wickets and the ball not doing anything, the bowlers not even having an impact on the game, and it was just a batsman show pretty much from the first game till the last. So coming from that kind of surplus amount of hitting that we saw to this kind of a tournament where the pitches have something and more than a little something to offer for the bowlers, it is really great to see genuine world-class batters trying to apply themselves and trying to score those 20-30 runs that might make all the difference in the world towards the end of the game. So these low-scoring thrillers have been absolutely fantastic to watch. There have already been 2 super overs in the tournament in the group stages, some exceptional bowling and batting performances across the board, and some major upsets as well. So barring some of the ground conditions and some pitch conditions, particularly the New York pitch was a little bit of a letdown. Same thing with the outfield as well. But besides that, it's been an exciting tournament so far. The washout games in Florida were a bummer as well. But having said that, I think USA has done a reasonably decent job, given it's their first World Cup, and none of these stadiums were like actual cricket stadiums before the tournament started. I think it's a good job that the organizers have done to put together at least this much. And the cricket scene in the US, I think, will just grow from here. And hopefully we can see more international level tournaments happening here in the future as well. Right, so that was a quick recap of the group stage. Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Hopefully you get a chance to watch some of my earlier videos as well. Please do like this video, share this channel with your friends and family, anyone who's interested in any cricket related content. I try and do a little bit of a deep dive and analysis into the games as well. So please do share this channel and show all your love and support. Who do you think will be the top 4 teams to make it to the semi-finals? Let me know in the comments, and we can have a chat there. Thank you so much, folks, for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.